Have you ever felt like you were just an ATM to your family? I spent my entire life trying to earn my parents' love while they poured everything into my sister. I put myself through college, built a successful career, and then they expected me to bankroll their golden child's lifestyle. When I finally stood up for myself, they acted like I was the villain. But what I did next didn't just free me, it changed everything. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family favoritism or financial manipulation, this one's for you. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors who are taking back their power. My name is Rachel Wilson. Today, I'm 32 years old and working as a software engineer in Boston. I have a beautiful apartment overlooking the city, a career I love, and financial security I built entirely on my own. But behind this success lies a painful family history that took me years to overcome. I grew up in a small Midwestern town called Millfield, in a modest house on Maple Street. My parents, Frank and Diana Wilson, weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable enough. Dad worked at the local manufacturing plant, putting in long hours on the floor, while Mom worked part-time as a nurse at the community hospital. My earliest memories are actually quite warm: family dinners, weekend trips to the lake, Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Everything changed when my sister Heather was born when I was 5. At first, I was excited to be a big sister. I imagined teaching her things, sharing secrets, having a built-in best friend. But as the years passed, I noticed a shift in our family dynamic. It was subtle at first, my parents spending more time cooing over Heather's finger paintings than checking my homework, or the way they'd interrupt me mid-sentence when Heather wanted attention. "Heather needs more attention," Mom would say. "She's younger. You understand, don't you, Rachel? You're our big girl." And I did try to understand. I wanted to be the good daughter, the responsible one. But understanding became harder when the differences in how they treated us became impossible to ignore. When I was 8, I needed new winter clothes as I'd outgrown last year's coat. Mom took me to the thrift store while Heather got brand new outfits from the mall. "We have to budget," Dad explained when I asked why. But somehow, there was always money in the budget for whatever Heather wanted or needed. My 10th birthday was the first time I truly understood my place in the family. I'd been promised a small party with a few friends from school. I'd even handed out invitations. But 3 days before, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table. "Honey, we have to cancel your party," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Heather got accepted into Miss Abigail's dance academy, and the deposit is due this week. We just can't afford both." I nodded, fighting back tears. That night, I heard my parents talking in the kitchen. "I feel bad about Rachel's party," Mom said. "She'll be fine," Dad replied. "Rachel is independent. Heather needs these opportunities. She has real talent." I learned 2 things that day. My feelings didn't matter as much as Heather's, and I needed to take care of myself because no one else would. Elementary school became my escape. I threw myself into academics, flourishing under the attention of teachers who actually noticed my efforts. Mrs. Patterson, my 5th grade teacher, became something of a surrogate mother figure. She stayed after school to help with science projects and recommended books that challenged me. When I won the school's spelling bee, she took a photo of me with my certificate since my parents couldn't attend. Heather had a swim meet that day. "You have a brilliant mind, Rachel," Mrs. Patterson told me. "Don't let anyone dim your light." Middle school brought more of the same. I joined the math club, debate team, and computer club, finding my tribe among other academically minded kids. My parents rarely asked about these activities, but they attended every one of Heather's soccer games and dance recitals, proudly displaying her participation trophies on the mantle. My academic awards stayed in my desk drawer. When I was 13, I won first place in the regional science fair with a computer program I'd coded myself. It was my proudest achievement to date. The fair was on a Saturday, and for weeks, I reminded my parents about it. "We'll be there," Mom promised. But Saturday morning, Heather announced her dance studio had added an emergency rehearsal for their upcoming recital. "We have to take her," Dad said, car keys already in hand. "This recital is important for her future. Your science thing is just, well, you don't need us there to win, right?" I went alone. When I accepted my blue ribbon, I scanned the audience, still hoping they might have made it after all. They hadn't. That night, they brought home pizza to celebrate Heather mastering a new dance routine. My science fair victory went unmentioned. It was around this time that computers became my sanctuary. The school had a few older models in the library, and I'd spend lunch periods learning to code. The logical, predictable nature of programming made sense in a way my family didn't. Computers didn't play favorites. Heather, meanwhile, was growing into a role as the golden child. By now, she understood her position of privilege and occasionally used it against me. Mom always says yes to me. She taught when we argued. They love me more because I'm special. At 16, I got a job stocking shelves at the local grocery store after school and on weekends. I saved every penny, and 6 months later, I had enough to buy a second-hand computer for my bedroom. My parents seemed almost relieved that I had something to keep me occupied and out of their way. High school was a blur of classes, work, and late nights coding. I made honor roll every semester, but my report cards barely earned a glance. "That's nice, honey," Mom would say before turning to help Heather with her significantly more challenging task of picking the perfect outfit for her date. When senior year arrived, the question of college loomed. My guidance counselor, Mr. Simmons, helped me navigate applications and scholarships since my parents offered no guidance. I was accepted to several state schools and received a partial scholarship to Michigan State, my top choice. "We can't help you with tuition," Dad informed me when I shared the news. "We're already saving for Heather's college fund. She wants to attend Brighton College. It's very prestigious for performing arts." I nodded, having expected nothing else. "I'll figure it out." And I did. I took out loans, applied for every scholarship I could find, and planned to work throughout college. My high school graduation ceremony perfectly encapsulated my entire childhood. My parents attended but left halfway through, before my name was even called, because Heather had a dance competition in the next town. I accepted my diploma to the applause of strangers and the absence of family. That summer, I worked 2 jobs, the grocery store during the day and waitressing at night. I barely saw my family, and honestly, it was easier that way. By August, I had saved enough for my first semester's books and a security deposit on a shared apartment near the community college where I'd start before transferring to Michigan State. The night before I left, Mom knocked on my bedroom door. "We're proud of you, you know," she said, sitting awkwardly on the edge of my bed. "You've always been so capable." I wanted to ask why, if they were proud, they had never shown it. Why capability had become an excuse for neglect. But instead, I just nodded and continued packing. "You'll do great," she added, then hesitated. "You know, if you could help out a little once you're settled. Your father's hours got cut back, and with Heather's college preparations next year." And there it was. Even as I was leaving, barely able to support myself, they were already laying the groundwork to make me responsible for them. "I'll see what I can do," I said, knowing I had nothing to give, but also knowing this wouldn't be the last time they asked. The next morning, I loaded my few belongings into my used Honda Civic. Heather was still asleep, and Dad had already left for work. Mom handed me a sandwich for the road and an awkward hug. "Call when you get there," she said. I did call, but no one answered. I later found out they'd taken Heather shopping for her junior year homecoming dress that day. Community college was a rude awakening. While my high school friends posted pictures of dorm life and football games, I was working 30 hours a week at a local diner while carrying a full course load. My apartment was shared with 2 other students, a tiny bedroom in a rundown house where I could barely fit a desk for my computer. But college also brought Taylor into my life. We met in Introduction to Computer Science, both of us serious students among a sea of people fulfilling general education requirements. Taylor came from a similar background, academically gifted, but financially on her own. "My parents think college is a waste of money," she told me over coffee after class one day. "They wanted me to get married right after high school like my sisters." We became instant friends, studying together in the library until closing time and supporting each other through exhausting work-study schedules. Taylor was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't alone. "We're going to make it," she'd say, when one of us was ready to collapse from exhaustion. "And then we'll look back at this and laugh." I maintained a 4.0 GPA despite my work schedule, and after 2 years, I had enough credits to transfer to Michigan State as planned. Leaving Taylor was hard, but she was transferring to a school in California where her aunt lived. "Family isn't always blood," Taylor said as we hugged goodbye. "You're my sister now, you know that, right?" I did know, and those words meant more than she could imagine. Michigan State was bigger, more challenging, and more expensive. I worked at the university IT help desk between classes and waited tables on weekends. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. But I was thriving academically, especially after meeting Professor Jenkins, who recognized my talent for programming. "You have a natural aptitude for this," he told me after I'd stayed after class to ask about an advanced coding problem. "Have you considered applying for internships? They could lead to job offers after graduation." With his recommendation, I secured an internship at TechSphere, a growing software company in Detroit. I commuted 2 hours each way twice a week, but the experience and the modest stipend was worth it. It was during my junior year that my parents made their first direct request for money. Mom called one evening, which was unusual enough to worry me. "The roof is leaking, and we got an estimate for repairs," she explained. "It's more than we can handle right now. Your father's hours still haven't gone back up, and with Heather's college applications coming up." I had exactly $2,300 in my savings account, money I'd been carefully setting aside for next semester's books and rent. "How much do you need?" I asked, already knowing I'd send it regardless of the answer. "3,000 would help," she said, as if asking for a small favor rather than my entire financial cushion plus money I didn't have. I ended up sending $2,000, then picked up extra shifts to rebuild my savings. No thank you card came, no acknowledgement beyond a brief got the money text. But I told myself it was worth it. They were my parents after all. Surely this would be a one-time thing. Professor Jenkins became my mentor during this period, guiding my studies and encouraging me to aim higher than I might have on my own. He'd grown up working class too, and understood the unique challenges I faced. "Apply for the Marshall Scholarship Program," he urged when I worried about affording my final year. "Your grades and project portfolio make you a strong candidate." I got the scholarship, which covered most of my senior year tuition. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe financially. Then Heather graduated high school and was accepted to Brighton College, the expensive private university my parents had been saving for. Despite their savings, they called me the week before my final exams. "Brighton's tuition deposit is due, and we're a bit short," Dad explained. "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, but this is Heather's dream school." I thought about my own dream school, the one I'd worked multiple jobs to attend. I thought about missed birthdays and science fairs and the constant message that Heather's dreams mattered more than mine. "How much?" I asked, swallowing my resentment. "5,000, he said. "We'll pay you back when we can." I knew they wouldn't, but I sent the money anyway, telling myself it was a loan, not a gift. I picked up a coding project on the side to make up the difference. I graduated with honors in computer science, my name announced to polite applause from strangers. My parents attended, but left immediately after the ceremony. Heather had an orientation event at Brighton the next day, and they needed to get on the road. No celebration dinner, no photos together with my diploma. Professor Jenkins took me out for lunch instead, along with a few other graduating students. "I have contacts at several tech companies in Boston," he mentioned as we ate. "The innovation corridor there is booming. Would you be interested in some introductions?" Boston was far from Michigan, even farther from my hometown. A clean break, a fresh start. I said yes immediately. When I told my parents I'd be moving to Boston for a job at Innovate Tech, a rising software development company, their reaction was telling. "Boston? That's so far," Mom said, frowning. "How will you help with things from there?" Not congratulations. Not pride. Just concern about losing their financial backup. "I'll still help when I can," I assured them, already knowing when I can would never be enough. Dad nodded absently, then changed the subject to Heather's freshman year housing options. My new job, which paid more than either of my parents had ever made, warranted less discussion than Heather's dorm room layout. I moved to Boston 2 weeks later, driving cross-country with everything I owned packed into my old Honda. I didn't cry when I left home. There was nothing there to miss except the ghosts of approval I'd never received. Boston embraced me in ways my family never had. The city's energy matched my ambition, and Innovate Tech turned out to be the perfect launching pad for my career. I started as a junior developer, but quickly proved my value. While other new hires socialized after work, I stayed late perfecting my code, taking on additional projects and learning from senior team members. My tiny studio apartment in Somerville wasn't much, but it was mine, the first space that truly belonged to me. I decorated it with secondhand furniture and a few plants, creating the warm home I'd always wanted. Making friends didn't come naturally after years of isolation, but Madison from the marketing department persistently invited me to lunch until I finally accepted. Her easy warmth and genuine interest in my thoughts broke through walls I didn't even realize I'd built. "You always look surprised when someone wants to spend time with you," she observed over coffee one day. "I guess I'm not used to being someone's first choice," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Madison became my first real friend in Boston, introducing me to her circle and including me in weekend plans. Through her, I slowly built a support network of people who valued me simply for being myself. My career advancement was rapid. Within 18 months, I was promoted to mid-level developer, and 6 months after that, I became team lead for a major client project. My salary doubled from my starting point, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I had just started to enjoy this newfound stability when the calls from home intensified. "Heather's decided college isn't the right fit," Mom informed me during one of our infrequent calls. "She's dropping out to find herself." "After a year and a half? What about her degree?" I asked, thinking of the $5,000 loan I'd provided for her first semester. "She's an artist, Rachel. Her path was never going to be conventional like yours." There it was again, the implication that my practical choices were somehow less valid, less special than Heather's whims. "What's she planning to do instead?" I asked. "She's taking some time to explore her options. We're supporting her decision." Supporting her decision turned out to mean continuing to pay her rent, car insurance, phone bill, and living expenses while she found herself. And when their support stretched their finances too thin, they turned to me. The requests started small, $200 here, $500 there for unexpected expenses. But they quickly grew both in frequency and amount. By my third year in Boston, I was sending home $1,000 each month, money my parents claimed they needed for mortgage payments or medical bills. I later discovered much of it went to funding Heather's increasingly expensive lifestyle. Trips to New York to network with artists, a new MacBook for her photography hobby, even a used BMW because public transportation wasn't reliable enough for her appointments. Meanwhile, I was still driving my 10-year-old Honda and carefully budgeting despite my comfortable salary. Madison noticed the pattern during a weekend getaway I nearly canceled due to sending money home. "Rachel, this doesn't sound right," she said as I explained why I needed to cut our trip short. "You're working 60-hour weeks while your sister posts Instagram photos from South Beach. Something's off balance here." I defended my family reflexively, but Madison's observation lingered. Was I enabling a dysfunctional pattern? Was I somehow complicit in my own exploitation? Around this time, I met Michael through a coding meetup. Intelligent, kind, and genuinely interested in my thoughts, he was unlike anyone I'd dated before. Our relationship progressed naturally, comfortable yet exciting. After a few months of dating, I finally shared some of my family history during a quiet dinner at his apartment. "Let me get this straight," he said, setting down his fork. "You put yourself through college while working multiple jobs, built a successful career from scratch, and now your parents expect you to subsidize your sister's lifestyle while she finds herself." Hearing it summarized so starkly made me uncomfortable. "They're family," I said weakly. "Family supports each other," Michael replied. This sounds one-sided. He didn't push further, but his perspective cracked open something in me. For the first time, I allowed myself to question whether my family's expectations were reasonable. Meanwhile, Heather's lifestyle grew more extravagant. Her Instagram showed her at music festivals, trendy restaurants, and exotic beaches, all while supposedly being too financially strapped to support herself. When I gently questioned this during our rare phone conversations, she became defensive. "You don't understand what it's like trying to build a creative career," she said. "Not everything is as straightforward as your computer job." My computer job, that was financing her bohemian lifestyle, went unacknowledged. When I attempted to discuss the situation with my parents, they shut me down immediately. "Heather is going through a sensitive phase," Mom insisted. "She needs our support to find her path. You've always been independent, Rachel. You don't understand what it's like to need help." The conversation ended with them asking for an additional $2,000 for home repairs that I strongly suspected were fictional. After that call, I sat in my apartment feeling hollow. Years of therapy with Dr. Bennett had helped me recognize the dynamics at play, but knowledge didn't ease the pain of rejection. "You're not responsible for your parents' financial choices, Dr. Bennett reminded me during our next session. Setting boundaries isn't abandonment, it's healthy self-care. I nodded, intellectually understanding but emotionally still caught in patterns established since childhood. I kept sending money, kept hoping for approval that never came, kept playing my assigned role in the family drama. Until everything changed. My 30th birthday fell on a Tuesday. I took the day off work, planning a small celebration with friends that weekend, but wanting some quiet time to reflect on the milestone. Madison sent flowers to my apartment. Michael surprised me with breakfast in bed before heading to work, promising a proper celebration that evening. Around noon, my phone rang my parents. For a moment, I felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps they'd remembered. "Rachel, good, you answered," Dad said, his tone businesslike. "We need to discuss something important." Not happy birthday. Not even a perfunctory greeting. "What is it?" I asked, already knowing it involved money. "Heather's birthday is next month, and we're planning a special trip to Sedona. It's a spiritual place, and she's been wanting to visit the energy vortexes there. The package we're looking at is $4,000, and we're a bit short." I sat down heavily on my couch. "Dad, today is my birthday." A pause.
"Oh, right.
"Happy birthday, honey." So, about Heather's trip. Something inside me cracked. 30 years of being second best, of being the responsible one, the ATM, the afterthought, it all crystallized in that moment. "I can't talk about this right now," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up before he could respond. That evening, as Michael and I celebrated at my favorite restaurant, my phone repeatedly lit up with texts from my parents. Not birthday wishes, but reminders about Heather's trip and questions about when I'd send the money. I silenced my phone and tried to enjoy my evening, but the damage was done. Michael noticed my distraction. "Family stuff," he asked gently. I nodded, then found myself telling him everything, not just the birthday slight, but the years of favoritism, the thousands of dollars sent home, the stark imbalance in how my parents treated their daughters. Michael listened without interrupting, then reached across the table to take my hand. "Rachel, you deserve better than this. You know that, right?" Did I know that? I wasn't sure anymore. 2 weeks later, I received news that should have been purely joyous. I was being promoted to senior developer with a substantial salary increase. My team celebrated with champagne and cake. Madison insisted on taking me out for drinks after work. Michael planned a weekend getaway to mark the occasion. But my very first thought, was how much more my parents would expect me to contribute now. Sure enough, when I reluctantly shared the news during our weekly call, the response was immediate. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom said, sounding genuinely pleased for perhaps 3 seconds before adding, "This is perfect timing, actually. The house needs a new furnace before winter, and we've been worried about affording it. Not, we're proud of you. Not, you've worked so hard for this." Just relief that their financial resource had been upgraded. And then, like clockwork, Heather called the next day. "Mom told me about your promotion." "That's cool," she said breezily. "Hey, I've been thinking about starting my own business." A boutique clothing store with my own designs. I've got everything planned out. I just need startup capital. Since you just got this big raise. The request was for $25,000. An investment, she called it, though there was no business plan, no evidence she'd done any research beyond picking a name for the store. I promised to think about it, then spend the night staring at my ceiling, Dr. Bennett's words about boundaries echoing in my mind. 2 months later, I visited home for Thanksgiving, my first trip back in over a year. The familiar streets of Millfield felt smaller, the family home shabbier than I remembered. Heather arrived late, sweeping in with dramatic hugs and stories about her latest creative endeavors. Dinner was a tense affair. Mom continuously served Heather the best portions while peppering me with questions about when I'd help with Heather's business idea. Dad mentioned the furnace replacement 3 separate times. Heather showed off expensive new jewelry that neither of our parents questioned. The breaking point came during dessert, when Heather casually mentioned the tropical vacation she was planning for January. How can you afford that when you're asking me for business startup money? I asked, unable to contain myself. Silence fell over the table. Heather looked offended. Mom jumped to her defense. Heather needs this vacation for inspiration. Her creativity is her greatest asset. And what about my hard work? My savings? Are those assets only valuable when they're benefiting Heather? Dad cleared his throat. Rachel, that's not fair. We've always supported both of you. The dam broke. 30 years of repressed feelings flooded out. Supported both of us? When? When you cancel my birthday party for Heather's dance lessons. When you missed my science fair for her recital. When you made me pay my own way through college while saving for hers. When exactly have you supported me? Mom's face tightened. You've always been fine on your own. Heather needs more help. Because you trained her to need help, I countered. You trained her to expect everything to be handed to her, and you trained me to expect nothing. That's not true, Dad protested weakly. Isn't it? Tell me one thing you've sacrificed for me the way you constantly sacrifice for Heather. Neither of them answered. Heather finally spoke, her voice small. It's not my fault they love me more. The words hung in the air, shocking in their naked truth. No one contradicted her. I stood up from the table, legs shaking. Thank you for finally being honest. I grabbed my coat and keys, ignoring my parents' calls to come back and discuss this rationally. There was nothing rational about decades of favoritism suddenly acknowledged aloud. I drove to Jessica's house, my childhood friend who still lived in town, and spent the night on her couch, pouring out the whole story through tears. I've watched this your whole life, Jessica admitted. We all saw it, but no one knew what to say. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mom. Are you coming back to finish Thanksgiving weekend? She asked, as if nothing had happened. No, I said. Well, before you head back to Boston, could you stop by the bank? We need next month's contribution a little early. The property taxes are due.
No apology.
No acknowledgement of last night's revelations. Just another request for money. In that moment, crystal clarity washed over me. Nothing would ever change unless I changed it. No, I said again, but this time it meant something different. I won't be sending any more money.
What?
Rachel, we're counting on you. We've already budgeted for it. That's not my responsibility anymore, I said, surprised by how calm I felt. I'm done. The explosion that followed was predictable. Accusations of selfishness, reminders of family obligation, thinly veiled threats about what this would do to our relationship. If our relationship depends on me financing Heather's lifestyle, then maybe we don't have a relationship worth saving, I said finally. I hung up and booked an earlier flight back to Boston. As the plane lifted off, I felt something unexpected, relief. The weight of obligation I'd carried my entire life had been set down, and I could finally stand straight. The first weeks after cutting financial ties were harder than I expected. Years of conditioning had convinced me that my value to my family was measured in dollars and cents. Without that connection, who was I to them? More disturbingly, who was I to myself? Madison and Taylor, who flew in from California when she heard what happened, formed a protective circle around me. Michael gave me space when I needed it and comfort when I asked. Their unwavering support helped anchor me during the emotional storm. You did the right thing, Taylor assured me during a late-night phone call when guilt had me questioning my decision. Family is supposed to lift you up, not drain you dry. My parents' response to being cut off was a textbook case of escalation. First came the guilt trips, long voicemails about how they might lose the house, how Heather was devastated, how families should stick together through hard times. When those didn't work, anger followed. Accusations that I'd abandoned them, that my success had changed me, that I'd forgotten where I came from. The final phase was manipulation by proxy. Relatives I barely spoke to started calling, urging me to reconcile with my parents, insisting I didn't understand how much they needed me. Aunt Barbara, my mother's sister, surprised me by taking my side. Your mother did the same thing to me for years, she confided during an unexpected call. Always taking, never giving back. I'm proud of you for breaking the cycle. Her validation meant more than she could know. Heather's reaction was a complex mix of emotions. Initially, she lashed out, sending angry texts about how I was punishing her for our parents' choices. Then came tentative olive branches, reminiscences about positive childhood moments, questions about my life in Boston, even a half-formed apology. I never realized how different things were for you, she wrote in one message. But I still need help until I get on my feet. I didn't respond. The olive branch came with strings attached, and I was done being manipulated. Dr. Bennett helped me work through the tsunami of emotions, guilt, anger, grief for the family relationship I'd never had, and now likely never would. You're mourning the loss of a possibility, she explained during one particularly difficult session. Not the relationship as it was, but the relationship as you always hoped it could be. That framing helped me process my feelings. I wasn't rejecting my actual family. I was finally accepting that the loving, supportive family I'd longed for didn't exist. Work became my sanctuary. I channeled my emotional energy into leading my team, mentoring junior developers, and creating innovative solutions. My focus and drive earned recognition from company leadership, who began grooming me for an eventual director position. Michael and I grew closer through the crisis. He never pressured me to reconcile with my family or question my decision to maintain boundaries. Instead, he listened, supported, and gently encouraged me to build the life I wanted, not the one my family had programmed me to accept. You're not selfish for prioritizing your well-being, he reminded me when the guilt became overwhelming. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The first major test of my resolve came during the holiday season. Thanksgiving had been spent with Michael's family, who welcomed me warmly. But as Christmas approached, the pressure from my parents intensified. We're family, Rachel, Mom pleaded in a voicemail. Whatever disagreements we've had, surely you can set them aside for Christmas. I sent gift cards instead of visiting, protecting the fragile peace I'd found. Madison and Taylor helped me create new holiday traditions. A tree decorating party in my apartment, volunteering at a local shelter, a New Year's Eve celebration with friends who truly cared about me. For the first time, the holidays felt joyful rather than obligatory. In January, I received an unexpected call from Heather. Her voice lacked its usual confidence. Mom and Dad are in trouble, she said without preamble. The bank is threatening foreclosure. They're 3 months behind on the mortgage. I closed my eyes, waiting for the familiar sense of responsibility to overwhelm me. It didn't come. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. What are they planning to do? What do you mean, what are they planning to do? They need your help, Rachel. They're going to lose the house. And what about you? I asked. Are you helping? A pause. I can't right now. I'm between things. Between Instagram vacations, you mean? That's not fair. Neither is expecting me to solve problems I didn't create, I replied. Mom and Dad are adults. They need to figure this out themselves. How can you be so cold? Heather demanded. After everything they've done for you? The question was so disconnected from reality that I almost laughed. What exactly have they done for me, Heather? Please enlighten me. She couldn't answer. After hanging up, I sat in my living room, waiting for the guilt to hit. Instead, I felt something unexpected: pride. I had maintained my boundaries despite direct emotional manipulation. For the first time in my life, I had put myself first and stood firm. That night, I called Michael. "I think I'm finally healing," I told him. "I know you are," he replied. "I've never been prouder of anyone." 6 months after cutting financial ties with my parents, I found myself attending a conference on women in technology. One of the speakers shared her experience growing up in poverty and how a single scholarship had changed her trajectory. Her story resonated deeply with me, sparking an idea that wouldn't let go. The next day, I contacted my old high school in Millfield and inquired about establishing a scholarship fund. I wanted to help students who were academically gifted but lacked family financial support, students like I had been. Working with the school administration, I created the Independent Futures Scholarship, an anonymous fund that would provide $5,000 annually to a student who demonstrated academic excellence despite challenging family circumstances. The first recipient would be selected the following spring. But the scholarship alone didn't feel sufficient. As I reflected on my journey, I realized how much I had learned about financial independence through trial and error. What if I could create a resource for young adults facing similar situations? Using my programming skills, I developed an app called Financial Freedom during evenings and weekends. The app offered practical advice on building credit, saving for education, recognizing financial manipulation, and establishing healthy boundaries. I included tools for tracking expenses, planning education costs, and calculating the true cost of loans. The app launched quietly, but word spread quickly through college forums and financial independence communities. Within 3 months, it had over 50,000 downloads and hundreds of positive reviews. This app helped me recognize my parents' financial abuse and gave me the courage to say no, one reviewer wrote. "I'm now on track to graduate debt-free despite their attempts to sabotage my finances." Comments like this confirmed I had created something truly valuable. I partnered with financial literacy experts to expand the content, adding modules specifically addressing family financial dynamics and emotional manipulation tactics. 8 months after launch, the app had over 200,000 users and had been featured in several tech and finance publications. I maintained my anonymity, listed only as developer R in the credits, wanting the focus to remain on the mission rather than my personal story. The Millfield Gazette ran a story about the new scholarship and the mysterious benefactor behind it. The article mentioned the scholarship was paired with access to a financial literacy app that was changing how young adults navigate financial independence. I hadn't intended for the connection between the scholarship and the app to become public, but the local journalist had done her research. Still, my name wasn't mentioned, just references to a successful tech professional who grew up in Millfield. A week after the article ran, I received a text from Heather. "It's you, isn't it? The scholarship and the app?" Mom and Dad saw the article, and they're furious. I didn't confirm or deny, simply asked, why would they be furious about someone helping students? Because it makes them look bad. People in town are talking. Everyone knows it's about our family. I hadn't written a word about my family specifically, but perhaps the situation was common enough that people recognized the pattern. Or perhaps my parents' conscience was finally catching up with them. 2 days later, Heather called. Her voice lacked its usual defensive edge. "Can we talk? Just you and me, not about Mom and Dad. Maybe over video chat." Cautiously, I agreed. The Heather who appeared on my screen that weekend looked different. Less polished, more genuine than the carefully curated image I was accustomed to seeing on social media. "I've been using your app," she said without preamble. "I didn't know it was yours at first, but the hometown reference in the Gazette article made me suspicious." I waited, unsure where this was going. "It made me see things differently," she continued. "The module about golden child syndrome, that's me, isn't it? And you're the scapegoat." The directness of her observation surprised me. "Those are psychology terms, but yes, the pattern fits." She nodded, looking down. "I always knew I was favored, but I didn't understand what it was doing to you. Or what it was doing to me." For the next hour, we had the most honest conversation of our lives. Heather admitted she'd never developed self-sufficiency because she'd never needed to. She confessed to manipulating our parents for money while knowing they were turning to me to cover the shortfall. "I'm not proud of who I've become," she said, wiping away tears. "I don't know how to function as an adult, and it's catching up with me." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Mom and Dad are broke, Rachel. Completely broke. They remortgaged the house twice to pay for my college, my failed business attempts, even my vacations. They've been using credit cards to maintain appearances. Dad's been skipping his blood pressure medication because they can't afford it." The revelation shouldn't have shocked me, but it did. The extent of their financial mismanagement went beyond what I'd imagined. "Why are you telling me this?" "Not to ask for money," she said quickly. "I realize that's what you'd expect, but no. I'm telling you because I'm trying to change. Your app helped me see the reality of our family dynamic, and I can't unsee it now." Skeptical but intrigued, I asked, "What do you want from me then?"
"Advice."
"Maybe guidance. I got a job last week, just retail, nothing glamorous. It's the first real job I've ever had. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I need to start somewhere." For the first time in our adult lives, Heather was approaching me as an equal, not as a rival or a resource. It was a small step, but a significant one. "I can help with that," I said cautiously. "But I have conditions. You need to commit to financial counseling, and you need to be completely transparent with me." She agreed without hesitation. Over the following weeks, Heather and I established a new kind of relationship. I helped her create a budget, taught her basic financial skills, and connected her with resources from my app. She sent me her work schedule, bank statements, and progress updates. It wasn't a Hollywood reconciliation. Too much damage had been done for that, but it was a beginning. Meanwhile, my app continued to grow in popularity. A major financial education company expressed interest in acquiring it, offering a sum that would make me financially secure for life. After careful consideration and ensuring the app's mission would be preserved, I accepted their offer. The sale made headlines in tech publications, and though I maintained my anonymity in the press, word eventually reached my hometown. My parents, having finally connected all the dots, attempted to contact me directly for the first time in months. "We've heard about your success," Dad said in a carefully worded voicemail. "We've always been proud of you, Rachel. Maybe it's time to put the past behind us and reconnect as a family." The message contained no apology, no acknowledgement of past behavior, just a transparent attempt to re-establish contact now that I had achieved notable success. I didn't respond. Instead, I expanded the scholarship program, creating 5 additional grants for students across the Midwest. I established a mentorship component pairing recipients with professionals in their field of interest. The program grew into a foundation supporting dozens of students annually, all operating under the radar of media attention but making a tangible difference in young lives. In a beautiful twist of irony, the Millfield Chamber of Commerce selected me for their Hometown Success Award, unaware that the anonymous benefactor behind the scholarship fund and the developer of the Financial Freedom app were the same person, the daughter who had left town years ago with little fanfare. I declined the award via email, maintaining my anonymity, but donating funds for a community financial literacy program instead. The money from the app acquisition allowed me to make these contributions without financial strain. More importantly, it gave me security that couldn't be manipulated or threatened by family obligation. For the first time in my life, I was completely free. 1 year after cutting financial ties with my parents, I sat in Dr. Bennett's office for what we'd agreed would be our final regular session. We'd worked through the major issues, and I was now equipped with healthy coping mechanisms and clear boundaries. "How do you feel about your decision looking back after a year?" she asked. "It was the hardest and best thing I've ever done," I replied honestly. "I lost the family I thought I should have, but I gained the life I deserve." My professional success had continued. I'd been promoted to Director of Software Development, leading a team of 30 engineers. The position came with new challenges, but I discovered I had leadership skills I'd never had the opportunity to develop before. Michael and I had moved in together, converting a beautiful brownstone apartment into the warm, supportive home I'd always craved. Our relationship had deepened through the family crisis, revealing his unwavering support and commitment. My relationship with Heather had evolved into something cautiously positive. She'd maintained her retail job for 6 months now, even earning a small promotion to shift supervisor. Our weekly video chats focused on her progress toward independence rather than family drama. "I'm starting community college classes next semester," she'd announced recently. "Just 2 courses to start, but it's something." "I'm proud of you," I told her and meant it. My parents remained a more complicated issue. After several attempts to re-establish contact on their terms, they'd resorted to using an intermediary, Pastor Roberts from our childhood church. "Your parents are struggling," he explained during our coffee meeting. "Not just financially, but emotionally. They miss you." "I'm open to rebuilding a relationship," I told him, but only with acknowledgement of past behavior and clear boundaries moving forward. Pastor Roberts arranged a mediated family meeting with a professional therapist present. It was as difficult as I'd anticipated. My parents struggled to take responsibility, deflecting blame and minimizing their favoritism. "We did the best we could with what we had," Mom insisted. "We never meant to hurt you." "Intent doesn't erase impact," I replied, a phrase Dr. Bennett had taught me. "My experience was real, regardless of your intentions." By the end of the 3-hour session, we'd reached a fragile understanding. My parents acknowledged, however reluctantly, that their treatment had been unbalanced. I agreed to limited contact, holiday calls, and occasional emails, with the explicit understanding that financial support would never resume. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. Rather, it was a clear-eyed acceptance of who they were and who I needed to be in relation to them. The foundation I'd established continued to grow, supporting students across the country in breaking cycles of financial dependence and family dysfunction. Each success story healed a piece of my own past. Michael proposed on a quiet evening at home, presenting a simple but elegant ring and a promise of partnership based on equality and respect. "You've shown me what real strength looks like," he said as I accepted. "I want to build a life where we both lift each other up." As we began planning our future together, we discussed the family we might create someday, a family where every child would be valued equally, where love wouldn't be conditioned on performance or compliance. "The best revenge is breaking the cycle," I told Madison over dinner, celebrating my engagement. "Creating something better than what you experienced." 3 years after that pivotal Thanksgiving confrontation, I sat in my Boston apartment looking at a photo of my younger self, serious-eyed and determined even at 10 years old. I wished I could tell that girl that her worth wasn't determined by her parents' recognition, that she would find her people eventually, that the very independence forced upon her would become her greatest strength. But perhaps that message is better directed toward others still caught in similar situations. So I'll say it to you instead. Your value isn't measured by family approval. The traits that make you difficult, your independence, your questioning, your refusal to accept less than you deserve, are actually your superpowers. They will save you if you let them. Building boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Creating distance isn't cruel. Sometimes it's the only path to healing. And family, real family, is defined by actions, not blood. Sometimes you have to create the family you deserve. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle the guilt and uncertainty that followed? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories about finding strength through adversity. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful beginnings.